No, I'm not. Actually, I'm not going to. I'm not really doing this live for the live aspect. I'm doing this live because I'm lazy and I don't have the energy, the time, or the mental capacity, or even the will to edit a video anymore. Pretty much quit YouTube in general. But I promised you all, and I do have, followers on here and people that I have become friends with through here that have been interested in sourdough. I told you all that I would keep you updated on the sourdough, so that's what I plan to do. This video is entitled The Lazy Way to Sourdough because I'm extremely lazy with it. And since I've just started this back in March, I am far from an expert. I can tell you that for sure. But I think that where I was so scared of it, I think that I have, before I started, I think that I have more of an ability, and I'm not as brainwashed, maybe is the way to put it. I don't know exactly the way to put it. At the disadvantages of having sourdough or the advantages of having it. And since I started doing it, I think in March, I think it was around March, I have perfected, in my opinion, what works for me, the lazy way to sourdough. Yes, you heard that right. I am extremely lazy with my sourdough. There's 3 things that I make with my sourdough. I make dinner rolls, I make an artisan loaf, and I make what I call sandwich bread. And I use the same recipe for all of those things. Same recipe for dinner rolls, same recipe for artisan loaf, same recipe for my sandwich bread. And I think that it has become over complicated. And I think that, I don't know if they do that to scare people to not do it, because they surely scared me. And multiple people I've talked to, are scared to start because it just seems so much. Seems like there's so much to it. But I am here to tell you that I have, my sourdough has survived since March, and I have done hardly anything with it that has been technical or heavy or anything like that. I'm to the point now where I measure with my heart, and it doesn't take very long to figure out kind of where you need to be with it. So I was going to make the loaf while I was on live, but usually when I do that, I get I mess something up. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to do this, and I'm just going to do it this way and explain to you kind of what I'm doing. First and foremost, I think what scares people about sourdough the most is having to feed something. Having to keep something alive. No, go lay down. Having to keep something alive. And that scares people.
You go out.
So, this is my sourdough. This is the sourdough that I received from a friend back in March. And I fed it today, so as you can see, it's up here. It is rose and fallen. But I not only fed it today, I fed it last night. You know why I fed it last night? Because I planned to make a loaf with it last night and completely forgot about it. And guess what, guys? She's still alive. She's still kicking. Now, the recipe that I use, like I said, for my sourdough rolls, for my sourdough bread, for my artisan loaf, the same recipe I use for all of those things. I use the same measurements, the same ingredients, everything. I forgot. I've lost track of what. Do you need something?
No.
I lost track of what I was going to say. The same that I use for all of that, I just turned around and fed it again today. It needs to be alive. And so I fed it today. Now, I'm going to take this lid off. I don't know if you all will be able to see. Let me see if I can maybe flip the camera. I don't know if I'll be able to. You think I can flip the camera? And I'll kind of show you what it's supposed to look like. So there's my ceiling. There we go. Okay, so that's what it's supposed to look like when it's been fed. It's supposed to be bubbly. And you can see the bubbles on the side. That's what it's supposed to look like. It has a strong sour smell, a sour aroma. Sometimes it can smell like alcohol, and that means that it has asturbated its amount of feed that you've given it. So, at first, I was feeding I think it's like the 1-1-1 ratio, where it's 100 grams of sourdough, 100 grams of water, 100 grams of flour. And at first, I was being super technical with it. And I was like, oh, I need to get this flour. This is the exact flour I need to use. And I need to make sure that I'm using distilled water. And I need to make sure that I am feeding it this exact amount. And I had this scale out here. And I was just rigorous. Super strict on myself. Super hard on myself. Trying to get the exact measurements. Trying to get everything perfect. So now what I do, I leave this in the cabinet. I sit my jar down. I add water to it, however much water, warm water from the tap. And I put my flour in, I mix it together, and until it gets to the consistency that I like, which is like a thick pancake consistency. It's what it's supposed to be after it's been fed. Once it gets there, I sit it on the countertop when it rises, and usually before I would put a rubber band on it. You still could use a rubber band, that if you're going to be gone for a while and you really need to see how much it rose and how much it fell. I really should have a band on this, but I've gotten so comfortable with it that I knew exactly how much I needed in here. I wasn't going to be gone for the day. I was going to be here most of the day, and so I didn't put a rubber band on it. So I've even got to the point where I don't even put a rubber band on it. But if you are starting out, I would recommend doing the scale and feeding it the 1-1-1. So 100 grams of water, 100 grams of flour, 100 grams of starter. And the reason why I say to start like that is because it will kind of train your mind and your brain to know exactly what the consistency of your starter needs to look like. Now, once you feed it, you let it rise. Now, depending on how much, how hot it is outside, how warm it is in your house, or how cold it is in your house, depends on how long this takes to rise. In the wintertime, in the colder months, it was taking all night to feed. I just fed this probably 2 hours ago, and it is doubled already. It's about 100 degrees outside right now, so it is warm in the house. So that's where I would recommend to start. So let me say that again, just in case it got lost in translation. I'm forgetting what I'm saying as I'm saying it. You can tell I've not made a video in a while. So I would start off with a scale. I would start off with 100 grams of starter, 100 grams of starter. You put your, so here's my mason jar. I use the wide mouth mason jars. It's just easier to pour out of. You can use a small mouth. You can use any glass jar you have. And I set it on the scale. My scale, you can tap it out and cut it. So let's say this weighs 368 grams. I can cut it and then pour my sourdough in, put 100 grams of sourdough, then put 100 grams of water, then put 100 grams of flour. And feed it. Let it double in size overnight, or 2 hours or 4 hours, however long it takes to double in size. I like to make my bread when it is at peak, when it is doubled in size. That means that it is fed, it is full when it doubles. Kind of like me after I eat, my belly doubles in size. And then after that, I make my bread. So like I said, I only use one recipe to make all the breads that we eat. Now, I know there's multiple recipes to do different things and blah, blah, blah. I haven't started adding additives, so I've not made any other bread besides just regular plain bread. No blueberry breads, none of that. No garlic herb, none of that. I've not made any of that. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I've only been doing this for a few months. And something that I want to mention, because I don't see, when I was researching sourdough, I really didn't see a lot of people talking about this. When you wash your sourdough items, do not put them down your sink. Do not. So once I've used a jar and I transfer the starter into another jar and feed it, and I do recommend doing that. I don't recommend feeding out of the same jar over and over and over again, mostly because they're really stinking hard to clean. Once you do that, it's so hard to get that stuff off. So I didn't realize how messy, and I don't think people talk about it. Sourdough is messy. It is messy. It gets sticky. It sticks to everything. It sticks to the bowls. It's just a messy. It's a messy thing to do. So the utensils you use, the jar you use, the bowl you use, the spoon you use to stir, all that stuff. I soak it. I put a little dish detergent in it and warm water overnight. I soak it. I dump that out in the morning, and I try to get as much as the residue off the edges and the sides. It does have to sit overnight, in my opinion, because I don't want to wash that stuff down my sink. I can imagine it being very hard on your sink. I'm sure there's people that's had to call the plumber because of sourdough going down their sink. So, and I don't think that's talked about enough. So I did want to make sure to say that if you were just starting out in sourdough or wanting to get started out in sourdough, it is messy. And I do recommend 100% soaking your utensils in the sink overnight in warm soapy water. That way you can break down that stuff. And whatever you do not pour that down your sink. I take it outside, I dump it, and then I come back in. And if I have to rinse it a couple times and dump it outside, then I do so. Just so I'm not pouring stuff down my sink that I shouldn't be pouring down my sink. So, next I want to talk about the recipe that I use. Now, the recipe that I use is from, what is her name? Farmhouse on Boone. I use her dinner roll recipe for my artisan loaf, for my sandwich bread, for my dinner rolls. I use her sourdough dinner roll recipe. I think it's like the basic. I think she's got a couple others on there. I'm going to go ahead and read it off. So it's a half a cup of sourdough starter, a fourth cup of sugar or honey. It's the same amount regardless. Any sweetener you use is still the same amount, fourth cup. 3/4 cup of warm water. A fourth a cup of melted butter, a half a cup of salt, 2.5 cups of flour. You can use bread flour and all-purpose. And I want to talk about this too as well, because I didn't say it when I fed. When I first got started in sourdough, I was feeding with all-purpose flour, and then when I would make my bread, I was doing with bread flour. And I want to show you the kind that we use. At first, I was using the King Arthur. Because the girl that had given me the sourdough, that's what she was using. But anybody that knows me, I'm a cheapo. And so I started using the Great Value bread flour. You do want to make sure that it's unbleached, the unbleached flour. But it's all the same thing. You know, Great Value is all, it's all the same thing. So that's what I've been using. I've been feeding my starter with it, and I've been doing my bread with it. Having to keep track of all the different flours that I use in this house. And I have containers of each. Just adding another type of flour that is specifically for sourdough just seems kind of, I don't know, in the way and useless. So using one flour has kept me in the lazy realm, like I'm saying, of using sourdough. So I feed my sourdough with bread flour. It doesn't hurt it. The sourdough doesn't care what it's being fed, just as long as it's being fed, or what type of flour it's being fed with, just as long as it's being fed. And so I feed with bread flour, and I cook with bread flour. Very simple. Like I said, this is the lazy way to do it. And obviously probably the cheaper way to do it as well. So, what else was like? Oh, so the sourdough dinner roll recipe that I use, I don't know if I can comment on this video after. I'm not quite sure. If I can, I'll send the link to the Farmhouse on Boone recipe. But like I said, I use that for absolutely everything because, like I said, I'm lazy. But also, I like it with the butter and the sugar or honey better. My husband likes it better. My husband is not a fan of like a sourdough artisan loaf. That's not his favorite. So typically I just make the sourdough artisan loaves for me and my daughter. And I will make just a loaf, like a sandwich bread for him. Or for us, I mean, we eat it as well. But he doesn't like it. He doesn't like, I guess, maybe the hard crunch, the texture of the artisan loaf. So I find that this recipe, though, makes a really good all-around dinner roll recipe, sandwich bread recipe, and artisan loaf. And that's the things that we eat. And I think when you get started in this, you want to try all the things. I want to try doing, we've tried pancakes. I like the pancakes. I want to try to do bagels and specifically bagels. But don't make it hard on yourself. Just get in it. Do it. Start out easy. Get yourself familiarized with it. Like I said, that's what I've been doing. I've only been doing this for a few months. But I've already found the lazy way to do this. Now, I wanted to tell you about this as well. And I keep going back to this because I keep forgetting what I probably should have made notes and wrote down exactly what exactly I do when I feed this. And so I'll probably finish this video out with what exactly I do to feed this. So like I said, I use the bread flour. Now, what makes this the lazy way about it is I do not leave this on the countertop. I do not, I don't take any sourdough out before feeding. When I make a recipe, I use all but around, depending on how many, let's say I'm making 2 loaves, I usually use all but like 30 grams of sourdough. I don't take anything out and then feed, ever. When I make my bread, I take 100 grams because that's the recipe calls for 100 grams of active sourdough. I put it in there, and of course, usually if I'm making 2 loaves of bread, I'm doubling the recipe, so that's 200 grams. If I'm going to make 2 loaves, I know I'm going to make 2 loaves instead of 1. I just feed it double, or I feed it twice. I feed the double amount that I need to feed it. Now, whatever's left, I feed it, and okay. Let me get this right. So let's say this has been in the fridge, and I do leave this in the fridge for like 7 days. I usually make my bread starting Sunday night, so I will feed this Sunday night or Monday, but typically Sunday night I will feed this. If it rises within the period of time, I will go ahead and make my loaves before I go to bed. I will let them rise overnight if it's not too hot in the house. If it is too hot in the house, I will let them rise, do my stretch and folds. I do stretch and folds sometimes every 15 minutes for the first 3 times, and then every 30 minutes for the rest of the time. So just depending on what I'm feeling that day, how busy I am in the evening. Sunday evenings just seem to be pretty busy getting ready for Mondays. Mondays, are Mondays. So I feed this sourdough. I feed it by visually looking at it. I add warm water, flour, and mix it up. Mix up the sourdough. I don't measure or do grams or anything like I used to do. Like I said, if you want to start off in this, you probably should do that, just to see what kind of consistency you're looking for after it's fed. Okay, so let's say it rises at bedtime. It's rose. So before bed, I will make the loaves. And then I usually wake up throughout the night quite frequently anyway, so I will get up through the night, do my stretch and folds if I need to, and then once it has risen or doubled in size, I will put it in the refrigerator. If I'm doing a loaf in a loaf pan, I will put oil into my pan, and I will put it into the loaf pan, put it in the refrigerator, get it out the next morning. Score it while it's cold, let it sit on the countertop and rise for a little while the oven is heating up, and then I will put it in the oven, let it cook, pull it out, eat it. let's say I am making an artisan loaf. These are the bowls that I use. They are quite large, and I'm finding that they're really too big. They get my artisan loaves too big. I do have some smaller bowls that I have been using here recently, and they seem to make the artisan loaf a little bit more manageable of a size to fit in my Dutch oven. When I do my artisan loaves, I do use my great grandmother's Dutch oven, which I'm very proud to have, a cast iron Dutch oven. But bowls like this, I recommend you can maybe mix in these, let them rise in these. But if you're going to do an artisan loaf the next day, I would use probably a bowl that has a bottom about this big. One that will fit into your whatever you're using, Dutch oven, whatever, for an artisan loaf. I don't make many artisan loaves. I usually just do them if I really want to make really pretty bread. But typically I'm making the loaves, the sandwich bread. So I will feed my starter, like I said, let's say before bed. Usually around supper time I will feed this, and then before I go to bed I will make my loaf. I will let it rise in this bowl, do my stretch and folds before I go to bed a couple times, wake up throughout the night maybe 1 or 2 times, get up, and you don't have to do it this way, but this is what I do. Do my stretch and folds in the night, put it in the refrigerator, let it sit for 12 to 14 hours. I've even let loaves sit up to 2 to 3 days. Put it in the pan, then put it in the oven when I'm ready to cook it. And that is the lazy way to do it. And you can let sourdough sit, but you need to make sure. I've made the mistake of not putting enough oil on it, and it kind of dries out the top, and you don't want to do that. You want to put enough oil or butter or whatever you're using on the top of your loaf. That way it doesn't dry out. Now, if I am not making bread, this sits in the refrigerator. I've had it sitting in the refrigerator for 2 weeks. I have found, probably at least in my house, I must have more bacteria in my house. Sorry, I'm sticking to my seat right now. It's hot. I must have more bacteria in my house. Well, it don't really have anything to do with bacteria. It actually has more to do with lack of feeding. So in my refrigerator, if it is in the refrigerator for 2 weeks, you can notice maybe sometimes that it gets it can get hooch on it if it sits longer than 2 weeks. But it gets kind of an alcoholic smell. It smells like alcohol. That means that it is fed out, that it needs to be fed. And so in cases like that, if it needs to be fed but I'm not going to make any sourdough, I will pull it out on the countertop, I will feed it, and then I will just put it back in the refrigerator. I will do absolutely nothing with it. It does not hurt it. It doesn't do it. You don't have to, if it has hooch on it, or if it smells alcoholic, you don't have to cook with it. And I don't. When you feed it, you don't have to cook with it. There's been 2 or 3 times that I have fed this. I knew that it needed fed. It was in the refrigerator. I pulled it out, fed it, and then just put it back in the refrigerator. I let it rise, double in size, to allow it to feed on the countertop. So let's say I've got a busy day in the morning. I know I'm not going to be able to make bread that day, but it really needs fed. I feed it in the morning, go about my business. Let's say, it's summertime, so we've got a lot going on. I come back for supper in the evening. It's done rose. I just put it in the refrigerator. I don't do anything with it, and I've done that many times. Like I said earlier in this video, I messed up, and I fed it last night, forgot about it, left it on the countertop. So then when I got up this morning, actually it was not even when I got up, I didn't even realize it was on the countertop until later in the afternoon, probably 11 something, 10 something. I fed it and fed it again because I want to make bread. So after I get done on this, making this live or doing this video, I'm going to do my sourdough. So I'm going to make bread. But you can just feed it and then put it up. And like I said, you'll just kind of get in the routine and be able to see visually what this is supposed to look like when it's fed, what the consistency is supposed to be like, and, just keep it alive by feeding it, but it's not as hard as, it's almost like people are gatekeeping. It's almost like they're telling you stuff, but then trying to make it scary. And it's really not, it's not scary. It's not hard. The only thing, I never was somebody to keep bread flour on hand. I do have to keep bread flour on hand because, like I said, that's what I'm feeding this with. I pretty much just buy bread flour now specifically to feed and to cook with this. It wasn't something that I kept on hand before. Usually I just kept all-purpose on hand. So I do have to keep, I do have to buy flour, and I'm not somebody that goes to the store a lot. Usually maybe once every month, I usually go to the grocery store. And so I do have to remind myself to be sure that I have bread flour on hand. So, I usually buy 2 bags of bread flour when I'm in the store. Hopefully I don't run out by that time. I have ran out and been like, oh gosh, I've got to get bread flour. But like I said, this doesn't care what it's fed on. It doesn't have to be fed on bread flour. It doesn't have to be fed on all-purpose flour. You can do, and I've seen a farmhouse on Boone. She's fed her sourdough all kinds of stuff. So when it comes to different types of flours, so it doesn't have to have anything specifically. Just watch your sourdough. It's going to tell you whether it's unhappy or not, and whether it's been fed or not. You can smell it and see it very quickly. And I want to mention as well, as long as your sourdough doesn't have mold on it. I've never had sourdough get mold on it, but as long as it don't have mold on it, you can feed it and usually fix it pretty quickly, whatever's going on with it. So I think that's it. I think that's all I needed to tell you all. It's been scattered. Like I said, I kind of just did this spur of the moment, because I told my followers, I told my friends that I would keep them updated on it. If you've missed it, this is when we first announced. I named her Mary because of her headscarf. She's had the same headscarf since we began. And Mary is in Jesus' mother. My daughter actually named her that. She said she looked like Mary. So, anywho, I gave you the recipe. I will try to link it in the comments if I can. If you have any questions, leave questions. I think that I've covered everything I wanted to cover. Probably didn't. I guess that'll have to be alright. So if you want another updated video on this, please let me know. Like I said, I've pretty much quit YouTube. I was doing Appalachian Word of the Day on this channel, but I don't know. I started at the beginning of the year really wanting to be dedicated to YouTube, and just things came up in my personal life, and YouTube just didn't seem as important as it once did. So I've kind of separated myself from it, but I do want to keep promises that I've made. I do want to, keep you all in the loop, per se, on things that I told you I would tell you about. So if you have questions on sourdough, please let me know. If you are actually interested in following in our daily life, I do have a Facebook page now. That's all I have. That's all I'm dedicating myself to now, pretty much, is Facebook. And it is Appalachian Farm Life. Lantern Creek's Appalachian Farm Life is our Facebook page. So if you have a Facebook page, you can follow there. I actually share more intimate things about our life. You can see more of the day in and day out on there than I ever did on YouTube. So if you're really nosy, that's probably the place to be. But guys, I appreciate you all watching. I appreciate y'all hanging out. Hopefully I helped you all out on the sourdough. Like I said, this is the lazy way to do it. So if you are looking for a lazy, non-scary way to sourdough, this is it, y'all. This is it. No gatekeeping here. Okay? But appreciate y'all watching. Appreciate y'all hanging out. And hopefully I helped you out. So like I said, leave a comment if you have a question. I'm not an expert, but I will try to help you the best I can. So see you later. I've done forgot how to get off of these. Bye.